Welcome everybody who's joining our webinar. I'm Bill Petrovic. I'll be hosting this Score Mentor. Tim is here, our speaker, Tim Roberts, and we're watching the clock, and between now and noon, we'll be basically saying hi as you come in. Tim is broadcasting today from his office. He's one of the lucky people that actually can go into the office. I think that's basically, I've been there, I've been to the facility. Tim, you're able to spread out and pretty much keep out of each other's way there, aren't you?
Well, actually, I'm typically the only person that's been in here since March. Every once in a while, somebody else will come in for a while. This has been the best place in the city for me to self-quarantine is right here. So I hang out here a lot.
Yeah, that's great. For those of you who don't know, this Trustpointe Training Center, it's on 75th Street, not too far from Heritage Christian High School. And Tim has let Score use the facility on some Saturdays when we hold face-to-face workshops. Long time ago, I've noticed in some of the articles, they refer to it with capital letters, before times. So in before times, we did things like that, but it's a nice facility. But I think Tim, you were telling me that you're doing an awful lot remotely. You're not counting on the face-to-face for all of your training anymore.
Yes, we really have done very little live training. We had been using Zoom, for example. Some people use Teams. We've been using Zoom for about the last 5 to 7 years because we have some international clients, we have domestic clients, and so we have been using it. It was really an easy shift for us. More challenging, whereas our guests learned how to use a Zoom or a Teams, what they know. So we've been teaching people how to do things virtually.
Oh, that's good. I hadn't heard of Zoom. Nobody in the civilian world had learned how to use it. But boy, they've got a product that was at the right place at the right time. And my only mistake is not buying their stock.
Absolutely. My first thought was everybody invest right now in Zoom. It's going to go big.
Yeah, and Netflix. If you're not on a Zoom, you're watching Netflix. If you're at home, it's about the two things you bounce back and forth from. Of course, you got to have the internet connection and all of that.
We do miss the energy of the people in our groups. I mean, energy still plays. You can be effective on this product, but virtually. But energy is still important. I look forward to the day, and we don't know when it will be, when we can just be live with other people again.
Yeah, I think that's the whole university thing. If you're accepted to Harvard and they tell you to stay home and turn on your computer and the professors walk through the Zoom things one at a time, is that the full package, or are you getting a little bit ripped off there?
Yeah, we're being very mindful of that, those articles and what the universities are doing themselves. It's just critical to know what people are thinking and doing. They're a little apprehensive, but as they learn the products, they learn that virtual can be a good thing.
Yeah, it's got to be a tool in their toolkit, but I think if it's all they do, it's just online education, and they have a college campus and they have all of those organizations, that stuff kind of falls by the wayside. So we're right here at noon. So to keep our schedule going and to give you the maximum amount of time, I'm going to now say we're starting. Welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Petrovic, and I'm a SCORE mentor. I do the workshops at SCORE, and I just wanted to say one quick thing about SCORE. most of you who are invited to these workshops are on our mailing list, and our mailing list is made up of people who have mentored, people who have just asked to be on our mailing list from our website, or people who have gone to other workshops. But if you don't know it, the bread and butter of our SCORE chapter is mentoring, and we do that now with Zoom, and it's working out actually quite well. We have even gotten more clients from the fringes of our territory because we were doing all the mentoring at Keystone at the Crossing, and now, you know, if you live in Tipton or Elwood or Anderson or Greenwood or wherever, you can do this by Zoom, and it's not a drive across town, but it's free. We do it 6 days a week, and if you're interested in mentoring, we have a website, SCORE, Indianapolis.score.org, where you can sign up for mentoring, and you'll also get information about that in a follow-up to this workshop. So Tim Roberts, who you see standing in front of you there, is our speaker, and he is the founder of Trustpointe, which is a Sandler training company. And he's the 2019 winner of the David A. Sandler Award. Sandler has offices or branches throughout the world, and you're looking at the 2019 winner, training winner. He is a certified behavioral analyst, certifications in Gestalt therapy, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier. He graduated from Harvard Law School program on negotiation. So I'm not saying he is a lawyer qualified to be a Supreme Court justice, but he is a powerful negotiator. So, you know, basically Tim is a trusted advisor of people who walk through life with the role of building business relationships. So the topic today is intentional trust in a low trust business environment. And I'm telling you, you're really lucky today. We've got a real treat with Tim here. The parallel I draw is you can go to the Indianapolis Indians Stadium and see some nice baseball. And those are talented people out there. But if you go to Cincinnati or Cleveland or Detroit and see the pros play, I think you'll notice the difference. And Tim is definitely a pro, and this is going to be great. We're scheduled for 1.5 hours. You cannot be seen by Tim or heard by Tim. It's unfortunately the way this webinar was set up, but you are able to ask questions through the Q&A. Try to use that. The chat is not as functional. It'll let you put the chat message in, but it's harder for me to monitor that. And I'll be collecting those, and we'll talk about your questions at the end. Also, we are recording this, and we post all of our webinars on our YouTube channel, which is easy to discover by searching YouTube Indianapolis SCORE. That's it, Indianapolis SCORE. When you're on YouTube, use their search engine. In a couple days, this will be posted, so you could watch it again, and you could tell your friends all about it. I have a question already, Tim. What's Tim's last name? Roberts. So I'll let you get started, and we got one question answered already. It's yours.
Thanks, Bill. I'm grateful to be here today. Bill, would it be helpful if I go to speaker view on this, or how would you like to do it? Just keep it like it is?
What I'm seeing on my screen is the speaker view, and you are the large main event here, and I'm a little thumbnail up on the top of the screen.
You got it. That's perfect. Thank you very much. Bill, first of all, I want to say I'm grateful to SCORE. The work that you folks do in the community, Bill used the phrase mentoring 3 times. And I can't tell you how critical that, that role is. As I walk through life, I've been doing this 22 years. My company is called Trustpointe. I'll explain more about that in a minute. But every successful business owner I've met, when I ask them, how did they get there? Was it ambition? Was it drive? Was it goal setting? What was the key behavioral skill that got them there? They often laugh and go, no, Tim, you know what I had? I had a great mentor. Mentors can make a difference. A mentor is different than a supervisor, than a manager. Mentor is a really sacred role. It's sort of the people who bring us wisdom in life. So Bill, the work you folks do at SCORE is required, needed, and perhaps now more than ever, and I'll make that case today. So Bill, thank you and the folks at SCORE very much for inviting me in to work with your group today. I'm very, very grateful, and I mean that. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, folks, my name is Tim Roberts. Somebody asked a great question there right away. I do have a company here in town called Trustpointe, and very briefly, Trustpointe, I chose that name for a reason. It occurred to me that how do business relationships work the best? And so it has to be wrapped in trust. And you know, 22 years ago, and prior to that, I lost 18 years of my life to mediocrity. I was wallowing in mediocrity. I was a sales guy. I was making some money, but I lost my focus and drive. I lost how to bring value to people. And so when I started this business, I thought, what do I want the name to be? And we talked about it. I met with marketing people, and the word Trustpointe came to be. But you know, just using the phrase Trustpointe was sort of cheating, because can I tell you something? I didn't really know how trust works. And when I ask business leaders all the time, we do workshop and sessions every day of the week here, and we often ask, how does trust work? How does it work in your world? And people say the darndest things. They're close, they get kind of close, but they don't know how it works. So you know what I did? I made an investment. I hired a woman, Dr. Maria Bauer. She was at Earlham College at the time. I had met her from my Gestalt psychotherapy training. And I hired Dr. Bauer, and I said, Maria, would you teach me about trust? I mean, I think I know, but I don't think I know. You know, the universe of knowledge, 1% of what we know on the planet, that's what we know. And then we all try to figure out what we don't know. And then we have to really try to figure out what we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. And I knew, I did not know how trust really works. So Dr. Bauer, she said, better watch what you wish for. I'm going to teach you. And the first thing she did was she unloaded about 20 dissertations on trust. And she said, read those, call me in a week. Okay, I don't know about you, but go ahead and try to read 20 dissertations, any kind, on any topic. It's not all that easy. So I sort of scanned through. I found the 5 or 6 ones that I thought might be interesting, and I ended up reading about 12 of them. A lot more than the 5 or 6, not the full 20, but I read about 12 of them. And I started becoming consumed with how trust works. And I found out, and I'm going to use this word in a secular way, trust has become sacred for me. And today, I'm going to make a case why, as you grow your business, the topic today is intentional trust in a low trust business environment. As you think about the word trust, I'm going to use the word sacred, because that's what it's really become to me. I won't violate trust. Well, you talk about raising the bar, because we do small things every day of the week where, oh, we broke it a little bit of a white lie, something like that. You honor trust, things change, and the statistics are overwhelming. Today, What I'm not going to do, folks, and this is going to be different for you. I'm not using PowerPoints. I'm going to talk to you. I thought, fine, I'll just put out a bunch of PowerPoints and all that. Actually, in our sessions, PowerPoints are a crutch for us. I wish you were all live on here. I wish I could see your faces. I wish we could interact and play and engage. That's not the setup for today. I'm going to do my best to deliver trust the way I've known it and learned it. Some of you may be far more advanced than I. In many ways, I don't have any right, except that I've tried. And I've tried to dig in and uncover the truth about trust. So each year, and I will cite some of my sources at the end for you, you may be able to see over here, one of the ways I started off, I really started reading a lot of books on trust. And way back when, early on, I decided this one was what I needed. And folks, this one sort of became my secular Bible. This is the one that I really hold near and dear to me. This one is actually about the fourth or fifth copy. I use them a lot. I write in them. I highlight in them. I've memorized a bunch of stuff, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I've memorized in here today because I carried this with me all the time. I really wanted to become a trusted advisor. You know why? Because there were so many companies in town that were saying, we're a trusted advisor or trust us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this. Subconsciously, when somebody asks you or says to you, trust me, what's your first thought? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. If somebody has to say, trust me, you're going to love this program, or trust me, you're going to love this used car. I tell you, if they have to say it out loud, I don't know. I think it diminishes trust a little bit. So I started studying this, and I started reading lots of other books. And along the way, each year, I start looking for something, comes out in January. It's called the Edelman Trust Barometer. Edelman, E-D-E-L-M-A-N, the Edelman Trust Barometer. And it's a very powerful report. It reports on trust globally. By the way, the author of the book, Trusted Advisor, is David H. Meister. David H. Meister, M-A-I-S-T-E-R. There's another guy on this book, Charles H. Green. Ladies and gentlemen, you might want to Google Charles H. Green and Trusted Advisors Associates. He has a lot of fabulous white papers, statistics. Many times during a month, I'll Google trust statistics in business. I want to know what people are thinking. My primary source is the Edelman Trust Barometer. The Edelman Trust Barometer does amazing, it's a long white paper, 60 pages, something like that every year. They really tear apart the word trust in government, in business, in institutions overall. One of the most recent Edelman Trust Barometers talks about the phrase, the polarization of trust. Folks, you see the news. Look around the United States alone right now. Is trust diminished? Is trust beat up? Is trust at an all-time low? We use words like polarized. If we're using words like polarized, can I tell you something? Trust is gone. Trust in business has been diminished. It's been raising a little bit this year as companies have started to look at the pandemic and how are they going to protect their client bases, how every company tries to become an essential service because they know essential service providers are the most trusted. You know, if we look at the quadrant of trust and we go, who is Who is the best at trust, and who is down in the quadrant called contempt and disgust? The one where people rely on the most, the good trust quadrant, guess who's at the top? Nurses, EMTs, doctors in many ways. But nurses, EMTs, first responders, people still trust them. Of course, if you're in pain, if you're hurting, you'll trust anybody that can help you. But they do it because they have a skill set. You've always known that doctor that you're most comfortable with who has great bedside manner. You trust the doctor with bedside manner because you know it means they listen with empathy. They're present for you. They know how to validate you, and they know how to ask a lot of questions. The people that are down in disgust and contempt in terms of trust, you can imagine what the topics are. Politicians, insurance, lawyers, salespeople. You know, every time you walk into a department store, you told me before you left for the mall that you were going to buy a sweater, and then you walk into that mall, you walk into the store where you want to buy a sweater, and the clerk comes up and says, "Can I help you?" And what do you say? You give them a big smile and you go, "Just looking." Have you ever noticed that subconscious hand? Just looking. You smile at them. Your feet are pointed in another direction, and that's because you don't trust them. You are actually lying to them because you don't want to be sold. Fair? And so we know trust is at a low point. One of the interesting worldwide statistics about trust, and I am going to share a few statistics with you, the polarization of trust. There are markets around the world where they've made huge gains. Trust in the world. The U.S. was #1 for many years. We are down 37 points, and we're about number 35 or 36 on the list. China has overcome everybody. China, #1 in the world on trust. The U.S. has diminished. We don't trust news sources. We don't trust politicians. We're starting to distrust brands and each other. And that makes your challenge as a business owner, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been at it for a while, or regardless of what your role is, you have to view trust as your #1 skill. You have to ask yourself sometimes, how do I create trust with another human being? Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you this question. What's your strategy for developing trust with another human being? Just sit on that for a second. What's your strategy for developing trust with another human being? And there are going to be those of you on this call that are going, "Well, Tim, trust should not have a strategy." Okay, I don't want to argue with it, but do you know enough about other human beings? Have you studied human beings to know that everybody is different on the planet? No one on earth sees the world the same way. We all have vastly different neural experience. Completely different neural experiences. Even twins born 10 seconds apart will be polar opposite behaviors. There's a rule in psychology about birth order, second born same sex. We know that second born same sex is going to be night and day polar opposites of what the firstborn behavioral style is. To me, that just reinforces the idea that everyone views trust differently. Everyone sees every experience, a buying experience, a selling experience, a negotiating experience. They all see it differently. And so how do you really connect with somebody and begin the process of building trust? And so I have framed it as, what's your strategy for developing trust with another human being? What are the skills you deploy for building trust? And that means we sort of have to know something about it just a little bit. Let me back up for 1 second. Let's think about human relationships. Let's think about how we first connect with somebody, the very baby steps of building trust. Let's think about the word rapport. You've all heard rapport before. In fact, many of you on your business cards, you might have relationship manager or relationship specialist. So what do you know about relationships? What do you know about developing a relationship with another human being? Now, most people are really good. How we get along as a race, given that everybody has a different neural experience on this planet, I don't know. But subconsciously, over many, many years of evolution, we've learned to trust each other. And so we've learned to develop rapport. Ladies and gentlemen, every day of the week in our different sessions, we say, what's rapport mean? Once again, you'll hear the darndest things. People really don't know how it works. So for those of you taking notes, pen to paper right now, this is the good moment to do it. Write down the word rapport, R-A-P-P-O-R-T. Write down the word rapport. And here's the definition. The definition of rapport, it's a French word that means give back or offer back. Give back or offer back. So the question is, what is it that I'm giving back or offering back? What is that? And when we ask that question, people say, well, maybe the words they use, or how about tonality? Or Tim, I know, body language. They come up with these ideas that are pretty close. Give back or offer back very simply means what you give back is them. You have to give back them. And you know what that means? You have to get rid of you. Page 163, bottom right-hand side of the book, Trusted Advisor. They're talking about Peter Falk, Columbo. Now, I can't see everybody on the screen, so some of you might be looking at me and going, Columbo, Peter Falk, who is that? I got white hair, everybody. I've been on the planet for a little while. It was a detective show about this homicide detective named Columbo. Columbo was the goofiest guy in town, a homicide detective. He would call on these bad mafia guys in the fancy suits, millions of dollars, and Detective Columbo would walk in, and his hair, Bill, you might remember this, his hair was all messed up, and he had on that goofy trench coat. It was always wrinkled. And Columbo would walk up to the bad guy, and who's sitting behind that big ornate desk, and Peter Falk, Columbo, he would walk up and say, good morning, sir. I'm sorry, I hate to bug you, but can I ask you a few questions? And the bad guy would look at him, make a judgment. Judgment is dangerous. He would make a judgment and go, I can handle this country bumpkin. This guy, look at this guy. He's a mess of a man. I can handle this. I don't even need any lawyers. I'll handle this. And Columbo would start asking all these questions. He had this weird style. We call it dummy curve. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but did you just say, and he would carry on his shtick a little bit. And the bad guy could handle it real easily. And Columbo would always leave. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And he would leave. Bill, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you remember what Columbo did every time he got?
Yep, I remember. He would say, oh, wait a minute. One more question.
Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Bill. That was a pretty good interpretation of Columbo. Columbo would just always turn around and say, sir, I'm sorry, but can I ask just one more question? And you guys, 15 minutes later, The bad guy would be saying, I did it. I killed him. I cut him up. I put him in a 55-gallon drum. I threw him in the Hudson Bay. The page 163, the bottom right-hand side, trusted advisor. Here's what it says. I love these words. I've been mesmerized by them. It says this, Columbo's genius. I never thought of Columbo was a genius. Columbo's genius lies in neutralizing expectations about himself. He's not a trickster. He's the anti-trickster. He is not an illusionist. He is the one who strips away illusions. Dig this line. He becomes the equivalent of background music. Beige. He subordinates his ego to the service of his clients, and of course, he always wins. He becomes the professional equivalent of beige. He gets rid of him. He looks not okay, and that has the psychological effect of making the other person feel okay. He was intentional, but nobody ever accused him of being intentional. So rapport, you're giving them back. Now, many of you maybe have taken a behavioral profile in your career, a DISC communication report, a Myers-Briggs, predictive index, culture index. There's lots of behavioral assessments. I do DISC a lot. It just always gives me a big snapshot. It's an X-ray. I use MRIs too, but it gives me a snapshot. Get this. This is from Jerry Richardson's book, The Magic of Rapport. And what we've got to do as we get rid of ourselves in this business of subordinating our ego, we really just have to switch gears in who we are. You know what people expect? They expect that you will show up wearing their DISC clothes. They expect that you will show up behaving just like them. Okay, let me ask you this. On a Friday night here in Indianapolis at 5:30 on I-465 on the north side, who's the best driver on the planet? That, folks, is called the illusion of superiority. I judge all the other drivers. And you know what I say? Why did that guy pull out in front of me? Why is that guy going so fast? Why is she driving so slow? Does she even have a driver's license? Doesn't she know that the slow cars are supposed to be in the right lane? I judge people. You know what we all do? We judge people. You know how we really violate trust? We go around the planet making other people responsible for our happiness. They're not like us. We trust them. We don't trust them. And so how do we give them back? How do we become them? Well, certainly you have to have some human insight. We've been studying people and behaviors our entire 22 years. And if you haven't read books or got on Mrs. Google and studied something about people, go on YouTube and just look at some DISC videos. One of the first things in building trust is understand other behavioral styles. One of the rules that one of the guidelines Jerry Richardson has in his book, The Magic of Rapport, is she who has the most flexibility in her behavioral style wins. Do you have flexibility in your behavioral style? Do you know that a high I, an influencer on a DISC profile, is very trusting? A low I on a DISC profile is not trusting, cynical, skeptical, pessimistic, moody. And do you know what to do when you're with somebody who's completely divergent from your style? So one of the first things that we have to take ownership of, do we practice understanding other people? Or do we just show up all the time going, they're going to love me. I'm going to wow everybody. Ugh. It's a little narcissistic. But that's okay. We all have a little bit of that going on. We call it confidence. Might be called something else. But the fact is, the way you wow other people is through mirroring and matching, is understanding, appreciating, viewing as sacred that they are different from you. So own the word rapport. Second thing is, and I'm going to get a flip chart out here, and I'm going to write this out because I do want you to see this. For trust, there is actually a formula for establishing trust. Let me show you what that is. I'll grab my trusty flip chart right here. I'm going to bring it up here, front and center. Now, what I'm about to show you is, you guys, I can spell really good. I have very poor handwriting. Work with me just a little bit. There's a formula for trust. So T, trust. Trust equals C plus R plus I. Okay. I'm done with the session today. Everybody have a great session. Love you. Enjoy the day. Wait a minute. You guys know what C plus R plus I is, correct? Okay.
No.
Let's practice. Yeah, Bill, thank you very much. The one guy that talks said, hey, McFly, I don't get any of those. Would you tell me what's going on? Thanks, Bill. C. And this one, I'm betting a farm, is one that each one of you own in a very real way. First one, C, is credibility. C is credibility. Boy, there's some statistics on credibility right now in the business world. Edelman Trust barometer. After tracking 40 global companies over the past year through our Edelman Trust management framework, we learned that ethical drivers such as credibility, integrity, dependability, and purpose drive 76% of the trust capital in business. Now, let's show you this version. So credibility is critical. The R, reliability or dependability. Credibility plus reliability. Okay, now I bet you bring a ton of that to your business adventure, to every conversation. I got it. I'm buying into it. But here's where the plot thickens. And folks, I wish we were live right now. I wish I could see every one of your faces. I wish I could interact with you, because I would say, what does the I stand for? I'm almost tempted, Bill might shoot me. I'm almost tempted to say, put it in the chat box. What do you think I stands for? Bill, can I do that? Can I get away with it?
Yeah, sure. As somebody said, integrity.
Yeah, I see it. Brother Phil said integrity. Thanks, Phil. Rachel. Oh, Rachel's got a question mark. Love it. She says intention. No, Rachel, 20 push-ups. Who else? Okay, thank you. Well played, ma'am. Okay, here we go. Credibility. Oh, invest. Nice. Thanks, Mark. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy. How about that? Okay, now let's isolate that and think about intimacy. What's your skill set in creating intimacy with another human? And you can't go, well, I walk in and I give everybody a hug. No, that's not how we do that. How do you create intimacy in a business environment with other people? You don't send love notes. That'll get you in jail for a while. How do we do that in business? Okay, there's another part to the formula here. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. Isn't that, see even how horrible that is? I apologize, everybody. It says self-orientation. Credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. Now, we want to be clear about exactly what self-orientation is. Nobody gets it. Self-orientation is your subconscious ability to go to self. To go to self. Now, let me give you an example, okay? Probably many of you are golfers. You go with your regular group, you go to the golf course on a Saturday, a weeknight, and while you're golfing, one of your buddies, they say this, they get to like hole number 7, and they say, hey guys, hey gals, last week I hit a 20-foot putt on this hole. Can I tell you what most people do? What the other 3 are going to say? It's called one-upmanship. And one of them is going to say, well, 2 weeks ago I was over at and I hit a 60-footer. I hit a triple-double eagle just the other day. Triple-double eagle? There are no triple-double eagles. Why do people, they think it's rapport and commonality, but why do we one-up people? Because psychologically, when this individual said, I hit a 20-foot putt, you know what little Timmy Roberts feels? I feel not okay. And the only way I can restore my okayness is to one-up somebody else. Chest thumping. But how do you get rid of you? How do you subordinate yourself? And I'm going to show you a very key skill in building trust and a way that you can learn to diminish your own presence. Now, please, to be fair, there are some of you on this call today, probably perfectionists, like to do things right the first time, do lots of research and studying before you do anything because you want to do it right. And there are many of you under those conditions that you're very judicious, very prudent with your words. And you rarely one-up. You have, I wish I had that skill. I don't. I'm a higher I on a disc profile. The planet has often been about me. I ran for the state legislature twice in earlier days because the planet was about me. I didn't know that not everybody appreciated that style. So please, there are some of you that are very, very good already from the day you showed up on the planet at getting rid of yourself. I appreciate that. But most folks are not. And it's because we want to grow our business. No matter what role you have at your company, you're in sales. Fair? Daniel Pink wrote a great book called To Sell is Human. If you've never read that before, you should. We do it in our personal life. We're always selling all the darn time. And it's because we want to make a point, or we want to prove how smart we are, or we just want to get our point across. And when you do that, you're actually diminishing trust. It becomes about you and not about them. And we got to figure out a way to make it about them. Very, very quickly. Okay, let's imagine, let's just make it up. Let's just say you're selling one of your new business features and benefits. And so you show up, you're meeting Bill for the first time, and you're really excited. You know, this is going to be one of our first opportunities. We're starting our new business. I hope we land. I hope we score a client today. That was cool, wasn't it, Bill? I just threw some.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to score a client today. Okay, so you walk in, and the buyer knows that you're going to try to sell them something. They already know that, and so they're kind of standoffish from the get-go. So when you walk in that first time, your credibility, they'll give you the benefit of the doubt. It might be an 8. And then reliability, they got on the internet, they read some things about your company. Product seems to make a little sense. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll give them an 8. But intimacy, in that first meeting, is there any intimacy? No, none. But I'll give you a 2 no matter what. So let's apply some math to this. 8 plus 8, 16, 18. Okay, divided by self-orientation. Do you know what buyers suspect when you're trying to sell something, develop business? They suspect that actually that you're greedy, that you'll sell them something that they don't need. I've got one rule right now in the pandemic. Selling something to somebody who doesn't need it is unethical. Not selling something to somebody who needs it is also unethical. And so we have to go out to grow our businesses. But when we make it about us, they really see your self-orientation as a 10. So 18 divided by 10, that means the trust factor is 1.8. That's not very good. But let's imagine that you honor this formula and they give you, let's say, the credibility. They now know you're a 10, you're in your 4th meeting, or the 3rd or 4th or 5th time they've come back to your store. They know you're reliable, that's a 10, and intimacy has started to grow. So now they see you as an 8. That number is 28. And you know what they've learned about you? That you always make it about them. How do you always are there for them. You're a servant business owner. And so they only are going to say, no, he's just a 2. 28 divided by 2, that means the trust factor is 14. 14 versus 1.8. Can I make a point to you? Trust is profitable. So, how do you get rid of you? How do you make it about them? A number of years ago, I was a part of a book. It was really a marketing thing. And they said, Tim, if you will contribute 1 chapter to our book, you're an expert in your field. If you'll just do this, we'll put your cover on, or a picture of you on the cover of the book. Oh, did that appeal to my ego? Oh, I just was absolutely in love. I'm going to have my picture on the cover of a book. I was a lot younger then, so it looks sort of funny if you see it right now. But I didn't know what to do, and I was studying trust under Dr. Bauer and going through my Gestalt therapy certifications, and I started really embracing trust. And I asked myself, how can I become intentional? What need I do? And the first thing I had to understand was I had narcissistic tendencies. I could be insecure. I could be defensive. And so I'm one-upping all the time. I'm always trying to make a point to prove to me that you like me. I have real HNA, high need for approval. And I really wanted everybody to like me. So I would often come on too strong. And so I said, how do I get rid of me? How do I do what David Meister says and subordinate my ego? How do I lower my self-orientation? And as I crafted this book, I actually did it with some Gestalt therapists who helped me and coached me. I came up on my own, I lucked out, I stumbled upon an acronym, and it was called OTHERS. And this became a driver for me. Others. I was going to shift my brain, rewire my brain so it was less about me and more about other people so I could build trust. And I came across others. The O is opportunity. Now, folks, I'm not talking about business opportunity, greed, making money, making profit, high margins, and all that. The opportunity I've learned is that every human I interact with, it's a wonderful opportunity, a gift to learn from another person, to value, to learn what they value and how they see the world. I would be better if I could see through their eyes. And what if
that person turns out to be a guide for me? What if they end up to be a great friend or a teacher or a business collaborator? But the only way I could make that happen is if I looked at a person and instead of judging them or all the goofy things I always did, I looked at them almost with love and admiration. So even in your store, in your business, with all your people, at a networking event in business, you have to look at other people and see the light. Sorry about that. I mean, that's where I have to really look. I have to be intentional about seeing them as a potential gift in my life. They might not be, but more often than not, when I switch my brains, I could really learn to appreciate somebody else. And then I would learn to think, they're so much more brilliant than me. I love that they think so much differently than me. I'm selfish. I started learning I could learn from others. So every person became an opportunity. The T, try on their shoes. You guys all know the old Indian phrase, you are my friend when you walk in my moccasins. Oh, I used to teach it all the darn time, but I didn't know what it meant. Try on their shoes. Walk a mile in their shoes. That means feel what they're feeling. What are they experiencing from their point of view? And when I started to really look at that, I could make a shift from my product or service could help them and I want to sell quality service and expertise to, I learned how to go, wow, oh, Bill, that sounds hard. I learned to appreciate that their shoes are different. Or I learned how to do, you did? That's so remarkable. And I could appreciate them, but only if I put their shoes on. The H, help them get to a place where they're on. Help them get to a place where they're on, where they're talking. You got to get rid of you. And so in my conversations, I started learning to develop curiosity. Keep asking, keep asking. No matter what they said, I could find a word in their statement that I didn't fully understand. Listen to this one. Somebody shows up and says, well, I have a big problem with our product, blah, 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 blah. And most amateurs in business communication would say, we can make that go away. We can do this, this, and that. And they go on to their glorified heroics on how they're going to save that person. Not me. I heard what the guy said, or the gal said. He said, we have a big problem with. You know what I'm going to do in the meeting? Big. Because I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, you do not know what big means. You do not know what problem means. You think you do, but those words require an investigation. And so many times we're selectively listening in business for what we want to hear so that we can make our case. We're not listening to their word choices. If I ask somebody in a meeting, they say we've got a big problem with, say, margins, I just simply go, big, and I don't say another word. Psychologically, that person's mother will jump on their shoulder and whisper into his or her ear, he doesn't understand. Give him an example. Psychologically, they'll rescue me if I just say, big, because I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's a real problem yet. Big like he had a headache yesterday one time, or big like he's going to get fired and lose his job and get a divorce and in a whole lot of trouble. I don't know. And to be a trusted advisor, I have to help him get to a place where he's on. So he'll tell me, give me evidence. E, this one was really important to me. Erase negative impressions. Sorry, I'm cutting things off. Erase negative impressions. What that means is judgment. Now, please, can I ask y'all, Anybody judge? You judge other people? I do. Number one sin, I promise you. I only have one goal in life on my bucket list. I want my tombstone to read, free of judgment. That's it. That's it. How do I suppress egoic thoughts where I'm always judging no matter what? You guys, I'm the type of guy that could go to a mall on Saturday, put up a lawn chair, and have 10 placards, 0 to 10, and rate everybody who walks by. Why does that guy dress like that? Who dressed her up today? Well, what a small man would do something like that. It was built in. I just started doing it to protect me, my self-esteem. It was about me. So I've learned to don't do it. Erase negative impressions. R, this is key. Resist with conviction the urge to talk about you, yourself, or your products until you've earned the right. Resist with conviction the urge to talk about you, yourself, your products, or services. Now, please, there's real live examples. When somebody says, how does this widget work? Sometimes you got to tell them. Not me. I often just reverse and say, how do you want that widget to work? Why are you even looking at that widget? But this has become a discipline. Resist with conviction the urge to talk about you, your products, or your services. That's a direct quote from the book Trusted Advisor. And so how did I learn to resist? Well, I used to carry a pen in my hand, and I still do when I find myself getting astray. I would keep a pen in my hand, and it was called my listening stick. And every time I had the urge to talk, Bill said something, and I'm sitting there going, stop talking, Bill. I want to tell you how good I am. Stop it. Like, I would feel that. And I had to become aware that I wanted to talk. And so you know what I did with my listening stick? I would just start squeezing real hard with my thumb on the pen. I would squeeze it down and say, resist, resist. And you know what I would find out at the end of the meeting? Whatever it was I was going to say would not have been germane at all. It would have very simply robbed them of their moment. And I learned also at the end of those meetings, I typically had a thumbprint from squeezing down so hard. I had to really practice interrupting the pattern in my brain so that I could free them up to tell their story. And the last one, the S, stay with them. Stay with them. And I'm going to explain a little bit that more in a second. By stay with them, I'm really talking about the power of presence. Presence, to me, is one of the big trust builders. If I could be present for another human being, I could bring value to other people's lives. Each day, folks, 60,000 random thoughts attack our mind. 60,000 random thoughts. Now, I don't know who measures this stuff. They got to have really good MRI machines. 60,000 thoughts a day attack our minds. And dig this, the number is either 83 or 87% of those thoughts are negative. You know what that means? It means we wake up every morning and we pick up the book of negativity. It's on our bedstand, the book of negativity, and we pick it up each morning and we start reading it. And we keep it like this all day, and we can't see the rest of the world. We can't build trust. Some people have really thin books. Some people have really thick books. How do you stay with people? How do you minimize the 60,000 random thoughts a day that attack our mind? For those of you who are professional service providers, I mean, I saw somebody with community chaplain is on here. Rachel, maybe that was you. I forget who it was. She or he knows the power of being present. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how I learn, and then I'll start giving you some key words that really took me to another level. Set this right here for just a moment, get rid of that. Okay, so 16 years ago or so, when I started collaborating with Dr. Maria Bauer, I was learning I thought, how does a psychotherapist, how does a therapist, how does a psychologist or psychiatrist, how do they get the truth from somebody else? Because people in those professions, they really have to know something about trust. And so I got curious. Well, it's too late in life for me to go get my degree in psychology or certainly psychiatry. But I thought, what can I do? And so I happened to have an older brother that was the president and founder of the Indianapolis Gestalt Institute. Gestalt is a form of psychotherapy, intervention. And so I said, Steve, can I go through one of your programs? And so it was me, business guy, sales guy, and 12, 13 social workers, psychologists. I'm going through with them. They laid me out on the table for the next 3 years and started teaching me that I was the problem. I didn't know my brother was enrolling me in therapy for me. I thought I was learning a new trade, but it was really, he was helping me through life. I noticed something interesting about the Gestaltists, and I started studying how they build trust. Because imagine this. Imagine you have a patient, and this is weird, but listen to me. Imagine that the patient was dreaming about killing his next door neighbor. You think he wants to tell anybody that he wants to kill his next door neighbor? Not a chance. Their egoic mind knows how to keep that buried. But some friends say he needs to see somebody. There's something going on, anxiety, depression, something in his mind. And so he goes and sees the Gestaltist. And so the Gestaltist says, what brings you in here today? And the person goes, well, you know, I don't know. I'm just not sleeping all that well at night. Now, a Gestaltist, instead of saying, well, we can fix that, I'm going to give you some pills here and some Ambien, and you'll be fine. You're going to sleep like a baby. It just takes some melatonin. You'll be fine. Have a great day. They know one thing. The first thing the patient tells them is never the real problem. Those of you who are selling a product or a service or a business owner selling an idea, often when your employees, your prospects, your consumers that come in, when you say, why are you looking for this? The first thing they tell you won't be the problem. They don't want to share their deep, dark secrets. They don't want to tell the truth because they don't want to be judged. Fair? And so the Gestaltists, they use a form of reverse psychology. If you Google reverse psychology, you'll find it's a huge trust builder. And so they use a form of that, and they say, oh yeah, I don't sleep very well at all either. And then they'll watch the patient, and the patient will typically move in the chair. And they'll go like, no. I mean, I really don't sleep. I'm tossing and turning every night. And then the doctor will use another form of reverse psychology and say, well, the good news is you don't have any nightmares. That's the main thing. And the person will say, well, I do have nightmares. Oh, I do too. Some of mine are horrible. Are yours in color? What are yours like? And they'll kind of be having fun, but they're really looking for the truth. They know this, and folks are going to want to write this word down, transparency. They have to create a trusting environment, a judgment-free zone. They have to. They create a judgment-free zone so the person will drop their guard and come clean. And so they use very specific skills. The most important one they use is presence. And I brought my chair over here a little bit so I can show you to the best of my ability. When a Gestaltist sits down with a patient the first time, they sit in their chair, and you'll notice they kind of balance themselves. They sort of put their hands on their knees. They go like this, and then they relax. Now, after a while, observing that, I said, what are you guys doing? What's this thing all about? And they explained to me, they said, Tim, presence is about attuning to another human, attunement, in sync, feeling what they're feeling. And more often, I mean, we become present. The Gestaltists could become present because they have to hit attunement, the piece of when we're in sync. So let me ask you this. You know, it's like, do you remember that first high school dance that you were at, the love of your life? There's 500 other sophomores on the dance floor, and it's you and one other person. And I mean, you've got everybody else blocked out, and you are attuned, you are in sync. The notion of being present is about being attuned, in sync with somebody else, where you just don't hear their words, you feel what they're expressing. Okay, so why do we work on trust? We know it's a low trust world right now. Why are we working on things like being present for family, friends, for our colleagues, our coworkers, our clients, and the people that we serve? Why are we working on developing this trust through presence and attunement? I'll tell you why. Transparency. If I ask you the question 0 to 10, how good are you? How effective are you at creating transparency with another person? Have you ever in your life had that, you know, I've done a lot of interviews. People will say to me, I don't know, Tim, when I was a little girl or when I was a little boy, people would always confide in me. Well, why do people confide in you? Because they trust you. And what confide means is they're willing to take a risk, become vulnerable, and tell something. They need to get it off. So if I ask 0 to 10, how good are you at creating transparency? Transparency is the stuff of magic in trust. Transparency can change outcomes, can change behaviors. It makes the person that you're collaborating with more effective. You become a better communicator. So how do we create transparency, and where does it come from? In my mind, it's built on 3 ideas. And for those of you who are taking notes of this, write down these 3 letters. S as in Stephen, V as in Victor, A as in Alan. SVA. And for me, here at Trustpointe, SVA has become the magic sauce for building trust. So what's the S? Security. You know, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy, you know, food, water, sustenance, roof over our heads, and we work all the way up to self-actualization. This is hard to get here too. It's close to enlightenment. Not very many people on the planet get there. But if you think about SVA, what do people need in a relationship? Of course, trust at a high level. But what starts it? The very first thing they need, security. People need to be secure in the relationship. I'm going to talk about security in just a minute through something called the Aristotle Project. I'll take it just a little bit deeper. People need to be secure, free of judgment, when they're sitting across from another human. So S, security first. How do you create a secure environment? I have to do it in one-on-one meetings every day of the week here, or in group sessions, or if I'm giving a speech. I've got to create security within the audience, whether it's 1 or whether it's 500. They must be free of judgment. Second one, and this is the big one, if you can walk away with one word, game changer, and I probably have alluded to it already, it's on the forefront of my mind all the time, validation. Security first. Security is built through validation. Do you understand the skill of learning how to get rid of you? We've already talked about that. And validating somebody else. I've already talked about it. We have a tendency to one-up people all the time. So psychologically, we can restore our okayness. Somebody tells you how great they are, we feel a little not okay, and our subconscious automatic response, our cognitive bias, is to elevate ourselves back up. So we immediately one-up somebody else. Have you ever practiced validation? Have you ever practiced family or friends on a weekend, whatever it is, keep 6 feet apart right now. Whatever it is, do you know how to skillfully mitigate you and just validate somebody else? You did? That is so cool. What did it feel like? Tell me more about that. Validation changes everything. By the way, for those of you who are curious, there's a great YouTube clip called Validation. It's about a guy who's a parking lot attendant. That's it. He knows validation. I strongly encourage you to watch that video sometime. By the way, those of you who can get emotionally accessed, you might want to take a box of Kleenex with you. There will be a curveball towards the end of this video, but you will understand the role and power of validation. The A is acceptance. People just want to be accepted for who they are. Do you guys remember, some of you will, some of you won't, that sitcom, oh, what was it? It was like, I think it was in Boston. It was like down some steps. It was like in a bar. Yeah, Cheers. Somebody just chatted, Cheers. It was the show Cheers. Do you remember the male, or the Norm? Norm, you know, was he an accountant or something? He was kind of overweight. He came in sort of slovenly all the time. He'd walk around the corner, hardly make eye contact with anybody, and sit in his same seat. And everybody in the bar would go, Norm! Norm knew that this was a judgment-free zone. Norm knew that he was accepted for all his nuances, all his idiosyncrasies, for all his weirdness. Cheers was an environment with lots of judgment and very little judgment. So security, validation, and acceptance will create a climate of transparency that can take you to another level. The other thing about trust can be felt. Think energy. Think of your cells, 50 to 70 trillion cells in your body, all with feelings, all with memories. Dig this. I can prove that trust is built into our DNA. In order to flourish as a species, trust has been the big driver. So let's go back millions and millions and millions of years ago. There was one cell, and it had to trust another cell. And it might have been thinking, if I open up with this cell, eat me. What's going to happen? But wait a minute, maybe two cells are better than one. And so some cells started to get together. They found out that they had leverage, and they start creating organisms. They started creating the very stuff of life. The very stuff of life is built in to our DNA. Trust is in our DNA. Isn't that cool? So have you suppressed it? Do you know how to bring it back to life? In order to trust, you have to be trusting yourself. There's a lot of people who are cynical, skeptical, pessimistic, moody. I love them. They can listen a lot better. They're factual and logical, but they have low trust, and they'll tell you that. Or they'll say, no, Tim, I trust somebody once, but if they make a mistake. Or, Tim, it takes me a while to build trust. Why are they so cautious? They've become less trusting themselves. They're suppressing the cellular memory of trust. If it's a part of our cellular field and we're nothing but sources of energy, we're actually radiating trust or not. from about 10 feet away. Some people say 60 feet our energy fields go. Hard measurements say about 8 feet. We feel trust. We feel love. I tell people all the time, to be successful on this planet, all you have to do is radiate love. And love encompasses trust. Now, folks, I apologize. I know that's some of the weird stuff, some of the woo-woo, some of the new age, but I know how it works. Often before a meeting, before a training session, before a speech, the last thing I say to myself is, Tim Roberts, you know your content. All you have to do, brother, is radiate love. In that environment, I'm actually building trust because I know at a subconscious level, they feel me. So let me start to summarize some things and talk about how we can bring SVA and transparency to actual life. Couple real life things that I do. First of all, the Aristotle Project. And I can't remember if earlier in the talk I introduced this or not. The Aristotle Project was done by Google in 2011, 2012. And they were trying to figure out what makes high-performing teams, trusting teams, collaboration, innovation, imagination, dreaming big. Men and women don't know how to dream big anymore. We've limited ourselves. And Google wanted to know, how can we play? So the Aristotle Project was about psychological safety. For me, in my meetings with anybody, I very simply I'll say, Bill, for example, Bill, can we, how about this? How about let's come up with some ground rules, Bill. No judgment today. Can I tell you something, brother? And I say brother and sister all the time. I'm just weird. I said, brother, how about this? Judgment-free zone. I promise you, during our discussion today, I won't judge you for any reason. I won't do it. You do me a favor? Don't judge me either. I'm here to bring you my very best. Or folks, if somebody comes into some of our programs, we have to create a cup, a community of practice. We have to trust that all the participants in the room won't judge each other, that will validate each other, that will take a risk and become vulnerable. That's why we learn under high trust environments. So the Aristotle Project was about psychological safety. How would you approach that in your personal life? Here's an easy way to do it. IR theory. All of us have an identity and all of us have role, and many, many roles. You were put on this planet as a 10. That's your identity. It cannot be changed for any reason. A 10. Own that. Believe that. Now, in your role as a business person, in your role as a volunteer, in your role as a not-for-profit organization, whatever your role is, you might have 4 days. I go home a lot, and my bride, Katie, will say, how was your day today? And I'll say, darling, I was a 4 in my role as a salesman, or I was a 4 in my role as a trainer. And I got a big smile on my face. It means I'm not going to blame anybody else. I'm not going to blame anything outside. My friend Amy Whittle always says, own your own 50. No need to blame. I had a bad day in my role as a business person. Me, I'm a 10. And so when you have meetings with other people, set up IR theory. Just look at the other person and go, Suzanne, you're a 10. I can already tell that. You're going to have a tough meeting in your role today, Suzanne. And she'll laugh and she'll say, okay. When you separate identity and role, you build trust. Second thing, storytelling. How about third-party stories? You want to build trust? Oftentimes, I will say to somebody I'm working with, coaching with, dealing with, I'll just go, hey, it's funny, once upon a time. I'll start with those words. Once upon a time takes us back to imagination in childhood. Once upon a time usually means we're in a safe, comfortable place, perhaps in bed, mom and dad reading us a story. So I'll say, once upon a time, I was working. and I'll share a story about somebody else that I suspect is occurring for this person. If I do it right, that person will say, can I tell you something, Tim? I got some of that stuff going on. I know what that guy's up to. And then I'll go, oh, you do? What? Tell me. And with a smile on my face, I'll let them talk about that. You're allowed to make a mistake in their role. It's okay. So I do it with some stories along the way. So storytelling, IR theory, become big in creating transparency. Let me take a moment to summarize. If I could end it here with something for us to think about. I would like for you to think about just the big picture phrase when it comes to trust is subordinate your ego. Could you practice mitigating you? Could you practice being present for someone else? I remember once a gentleman was becoming vulnerable, taking a risk to share some challenges their business have. And I said, I got you, my brother. It hurts. I can feel it. Help me. Where do you feel it? And you know what he said, ladies and gentlemen? He went like this. I don't know. I'm just really not sure. And I said, well, maybe your neck, maybe there's some stress right there. Sometimes people aren't aware. You can learn to mitigate yourself. Validate them. Let them go first. Work on your skill of creating transparency. And folks, I'd be remiss if I didn't encourage you. Pick up a book. I mean, I know many of you have heard of Trusted Advisor. It's dated. I got that. It's still viable. It's still real. Don't give it lip service. Have you studied the word trust? We really spend time. And a final recommendation, it might be this book by my friend Charles Green and Andrea Howe. It's called The Trusted Advisor Field Book. I mean, a comprehensive toolkit for leading with trust. Sometimes in life, we got to do worksheets. Sometimes we have to be intentional. Sometimes we have to challenge ourselves and say, am I the problem? Am I really trustworthy? Everybody will say, yeah, I'm a trustworthy individual. And then I go and I interview their colleagues and they say, I don't know, not so much. Have you ever taken the time to say, I'm going to work at it, and that we're going to establish a culture of trust? Can you imagine the benefits of working in an environment that trust was sacred? Ladies and gentlemen, everything changes. Today, I just want to simply say thank you to the folks at SCORE, for my friend Bill Petrovic, and all the work they do to help people become their very best. I'm grateful to have been asked to come on and talk about something that is passionate to me, that is sacred to me. I'm worried about our world. I'm worried about where we are with trust. And so it behooves people like me, people like you, let's bring it to life. Let's bring trust to life. It starts with one person at a time. I hope you'll make the choice to trust. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for letting me be a part of your program today.